People have been asking me to do a what's the best Bumblebee for a long time now, and I've always said I can't because I don't have enough Bumblebees. Then a little while ago, I came up with the concept of adding in all the figures I have that are based off the masterpiece Bumblebee to bulk out the video, since that's one of the most prolific designs of all time. I actually tend to avoid most masterpiece Bumblebee retools because I already have some, so I only have a couple, but that should do the job. And then without realizing it, I acquired a couple more Bumblebees. So now I have at least a smattering of Boombleebs to talk about. Welcome to What's the Best? What's the best Bumblebee that I own? Which is not even a fraction of them. Honestly, I have no right to be making this video considering the insane breadth of the subject I'm tasked with handling. Seriously, there are like hundreds of Bumblebees, and I've got 5 here to talk about. This cannot be considered the definitive list by anyone. Anyways, I'm actually going to start in vehicle mode this time because a lot of people don't believe me when I say these figures are based on the 1.0 Bumblebee, and I need to run through the transformation to prove that. So, let's start off with the figure that so many others are based off of so you guys aren't confused all the way until the end. Masterpiece 1.0 Bumblebee. The better Masterpiece Bumblebee. Way to go, Hasbro! I know it's Takara, that doesn't rhyme. So way to go, Hasbro! Like 6 years later, you take all your new technology, and experience, and even all the third-party offerings you could crib off of, like seriously, is third-party gonna sue you for stealing their steel? And you combined it all into something worse than what you made in 2014. How did you pull that off? Ah yes, the MP 1.0, a figure from a time when Masterpiece could be as cheap as $60 and the size of old Legend scale. Yeah, this thing is tiny, and yes, when you could find this on shelves, it was a Masterpiece worth about as much as a leader class. Boy, how times have changed. Remember when third-party used to be expensive figures because they were like $140 to $180, and now Masterpiece figures are like a minimum of $200, and third-party hasn't increased their prices like at all, so they're cheaper now. In fact, they might have gone down a bit in general. Except for Fans Toys, who needs to climb out of their own ass. Anyways, the Masterpiece 1.0 Bumblebee is a very good Volkswagen Beetle. Problem is, it's a very good Volkswagen Beetle, and Bumblebee is not supposed to be a good Volkswagen Beetle. He is in fact supposed to be a completely squished up cartoon bastardization of the old Slugbug, due to the fact that he is supposed to be a toy of a toy. Not a figure of the car itself, but a figure of the toy of it. Bumblebee was a toy that was made to look like a penny racer. So yeah, this is nothing like that. And that wouldn't matter if one of the key factors by which I grade wasn't accuracy to the classic interpretation of the character. So despite this looking great for what it's going for, it's still scoring negatively. It's also not what Masterpiece was supposed to be, perfect representations of the characters from the show. So even if it's a worse figure, the 2.0 is doing what this is supposed to, I suppose. So, this is kind of really failing as a Masterpiece, and it's also a negative quality in a What's the Best too, despite the fact that it is what it wanted to be. So here we get into the transformation, and here is where you will start to see how all the other figures are just retools, no matter the fact that they are different characters with immensely different looks. The wheels flip to the underside. The front of the vehicle pulls away from the body and splits in half to form the feet, then the sides fold around the backs of the heels, the hood of the car flips into the chest, and the front half of the roof flips up to form the torso. The sides flip down with the arms, and the rear of the car spins around to the back to form the backpack. Transformation is fast, fun, and simple, but the end result is left wanting. It's a decent approximation of the character, but with a lot of flaws. The thighs are too skinny, the arms are too short, the build is too dumpy, and the head is like a vague memory clouded by time. It's clear who it's supposed to be, you won't mistake it for anyone else, but all the details are at least a little wrong, plus he's kind of orange rather than yellow. Posability on this is basically standard for a War for Cybertron figure, but like 6 years before that was a thing, so why they didn't just directly port this into the WFC is beyond me. Titans Return Sea Spray. Number 2, and we are already not talking about a Bumblebee. This is a pretty decent representation of his alt mode, but much like the 1.0's head, every detail is wrong to an extent. The front is supposed to be triangular, not this octagon shape. It's supposed to be longer in the front and shorter overall. The pylons are supposed to be taller, thinner, and more bulbous in their turbines. But I get the impression that this was the best that they could do with it being a Legends class, and also needing to store a Titan Master like all the figures in this line were supposed to. Though if they cut that out and hammered out the details a bit better, this probably could have been a near perfect version of the figure. Though they'd have to figure out how to make the robot arms longer. Front section pulls away and splits in half to form the legs. There are no tires to flip to the underside, but the sides do still fold around the feet. The middle section of the roof flips up and forms the torso. The sides fold down to make the arms, though this time without the panel. And then the back half forms the backpack. So obviously an extreme simplification of it, but undoubtedly based on the Masterpiece Bumblebee. As a representation of Sea Spray, this is actually really good. As a representation of Bumblebee, this is obviously terrible, but that's, stupid. He's not quite dumpy enough for Sea Spray, but that does make him look cooler. This is obviously supposed to be a reinterpretation of him rather than one that's just not right. If you want to lean into a more svelte Sea Spray, you can take the gun off his chest and flip down his bib, so he's a bit more built like a fridge. Posability on this is actually very good for an old Legends figure, partially due to the monster stompers giving him immense balance. Seriously, like half his weight has to be in these feet. Buzzworthy shit'll. Some people tell me they like this thing, and I'm glad that you do, but I personally have no patience for it. Honestly, this is supposed to be more what the Masterpiece is supposed to turn into, and also not at all. It's a penny racer for sure, but this is actually the alt mode that's supposed to be coming with a Bumble Jumper, or as some of you may know him as, Bumper, if you're boring. Anyways, as a reinterpretation of Bumblebee, it's okay. A little messy and gappy, but it works for what it's supposed to be. Too bad it has the Bumblebee head. Transformation on this one is a simplified masterpiece Bumblebee, but taken to the absolute extreme. Legs do the thing, chest does the thing, backpack does the thing. But with a healthy dose of popped ball joints, the only thing that's different about how this works is the arms, and they still form the sides and tires. And yeah, this is not a good Bumblebee. At least it's one who's not fat, but yeah. Moving on. Cliff Jumper. This is the one I'm expecting the most pushback on, with people telling me that it's not a retool. But it is. Just one that's been cut in half and flipped around at the waist, then glued nutsack to head. Of the 4 so far, this is probably the most successful replication of the alt mode. It's a little too real since this was also supposed to be a penny racer just like Bumblebee, but it's enough squish that I'm willing to say it hits right for what it's going for, and it's kind of threading the needle, you know? Any more chibified, and this can't pass for a semi-real car or disguise. But less, and it wouldn't be true to the character. So in essence, this is kind of perfect. It both fits reality and the classic interpretation equally. There, I said something nice about fucking Cliff Jumper. Again, this is a version of the masterpiece Bumblebee, but this time the changes made weren't so much to streamline it for being on a smaller budget, but seemingly more to just change it so they wouldn't get accused of reusing an old mold. Essentially everything that happens here to be different makes this thing worse just for the sake of being different. Front wheels flip to the underside. The front of the vehicle pulls away and splits in half to form the feet. It has been slightly retooled so the hood of the car rotates forward, moving the wheels to the heels rather than the bottoms of the feet. Now, take the sides and fold them around the backs like normal. Here's where we get into the worst of the changes just for the sake of being different. The back completely parts forms off to make way for the new bastardization they added. Are you ready for how different this is than the 1.0? Cause I don't think you are. Instead of folding the rear corners of the car down to form the sides and arms, you fold them up to do it. Riveting, I know. Like I said before, this thing was basically cut in half and glued ass to head. So, you do the thing with the chest, but this time you spin it around at the waist after. Now, take the hood of the car and flip it into the torso, but the exact opposite direction of the masterpiece Bumblebee. Then take the back of the car, which you parts formed off in this moronic twist, flip out a peg and plug it onto the back as a backpack. The whole rear of the vehicle parts forms off, and they didn't even change where it went in the end. And I know I pointed out this thing as a shitty shield many times before because it'd offer about as much protection as a human torso if you did, but I'd like to point out that this is actually worse than that, because it's not just made out of the same stuff he is, it's mostly made out of glass. But yeah, you have to see that this is just the same thing with a twist. Of the waist. I'm so goddamn funny! You may argue that they changed every inch of sculpted material, and enough of the transformation that it's no longer a retool, but that's exactly what a retool is. They started with the masterpiece Bumblebee, and they changed the tooling for it. By definition, it is a retool, and not even as much of one as people like to pretend, and everything they did do made the transformation less intuitive, and less fun. Honestly, it's kind of annoying to do all the same steps, but have them be like 10% clunkier. Like, really annoying. As much credit as I gave the alt mode, the robot mode does not get the same benefit. This is much less accurate to the character. There's an absolute string of details I've gone into before that makes this guy less accurate than people like to think. He tends to be credited as a micro masterpiece in the looks department, but no, this is off by more than most figures actually, and I don't know why it gets so much praise for it honestly. I think it's because people view it as a big deal that this came out before a Bumblebee for some stupid reason. What order the figures came in does not make them any better. It does not change the quality of the figure. And this thing's body is so badly proportioned he can't even get his arms across his chest. So posing sucks, and I will not hear arguments to the contrary. Lastly, we have the Buzzworthy Origin Space Bumblebee. The first thing you will probably notice is that I got the sides to sit flush. A lot of people told me the problem was I had the head turned around in transformation. And at first I thought they were wrong because changing it didn't really help, but then I just shoved on the figure really hard and it went into place. So thanks for the tip, guys. Secondly, I want to apologize because apparently I'm a moron. I don't know why it never crossed my mind to take pictures of this and the space wheeljack only I have in the review of this figure. But I must be some kind of idiot to have not done that. I cannot explain why I'm this dumb. Hopefully this is better late than never. Hasbro, space wheeljack, give it to the people. They need it! Anyways, of all the alt modes, this is easily the best. It's basically perfect. It's obviously not trying to be the classic interpretation as we think of it outside of the very first episode, but for what it is going for, it's exactly what it should be, and it is glorious. Transformation on this is really fun too. It's not as smooth as the masterpiece, as parts can pretty easily accidentally pop off, but it's a great one, and it's the only one that's not descended from the MP. The robot mode on this is pretty good. It's obviously very kibbly, but what choice did they have? The design was kind of impossible. It'd be cool if they crammed it all in perfectly, but I don't think even a $300 figure could pull that off. And it poses like a boss. So, what's the best? I don't know if this is going to surprise anyone, but the worst is obviously the Buzzworthy Bumblebee. If you judge it as a Bumblebee, then it's got the wrong body. If you judge it as a Bumble Jumper, then it's got the wrong head, and its build is terrible. Then I'm gonna piss some people off and make the second worst Earthrise Cliff Jumper. This is just the masterpiece again, but much worse. Not simplified like the other two, just worse for the sake of being different. This is not bad per se, but it's so infuriating to me that they didn't either use a new mold or just leave the old mold alone. It was good before, and it's not now. But what makes this lose a what's the best is actually the robot mode, and the fact that the transformation isn't fun. Robot mode is not as accurate as people think it is, and the transformation sucks. It's just the Masterpiece transformation, but clashier and less intuitive. Sea Spray is next. He is neither the most posable nor accurate thing, but I will say that in both modes he's close enough, and the transformation is actually fun. Every time I think I'm being too harsh, worrying that I'm putting this above the Cliff Jumper for personal reasons because of how much I don't like that figure, regardless of whether or not it fits the criteria of a what's the best, I think of this transformation and I go, no, I'm right. And for the first place, it's really hard to decide. The Masterpiece is definitely more accurate to the classic design than the Space Bumblebee, and more quality with less kibble. But the alt mode is failing it very hard on the accuracy department, whereas the Space is getting points by actually being the correct color, and the robot mode, while less accurate, is doing a good job still. And the alt mode on this slays. So unlike the MP, this is running a solid robot mode and a fantastic alt mode that's accurate to its intended target, but not the classic interpretation, as opposed to a good robot mode and a bad alt mode. Both have good transformations, though the Masterpieces is better. But the posing is just no contest. The Space Bumblebee is leagues better than any other figure on this list, and leagues better than most other figures in general, honestly. So, Space Bumblebee has a perfect alt mode, with a decent robot mode that's accurate to what it's going for, with a good transformation, and amazing posing. The Masterpiece has a decent alt mode, with a good robot mode. It's not particularly accurate to the classic interpretation like it's going for, and it's got a great transformation, but the posing is average. So, the Masterpiece is going to have to take second, and the Space Bumblebee gets the crown. Space Bumblebee is the best. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And remember, a difference of opinion is the right of all sentient beings. Now time for the monthly shoutouts. If you'd like a shoutout yourself, please just email me at PerspectiveEndShoutouts@gmail.com. And if you want your channel to be included in the shoutout, please include a link to your YouTube page, as well as a screenshot of your channel banner and a description of what your channel is about. That way I don't end up describing it as eclectic, or any other social media that you want included. But if you want to just hear me say your name and wish you well, I'm happy to do that. Okay, first up, GamerFreddy mostly does roleplay in Minecraft, but he does play other games too. SWproductions wants me to shout out their Transformers Instagram. Sorry I couldn't find a Rodimus before the 18th, but happy belated birthday. TF Movies wants me to say happy birthday to their girlfriend Mary on the 28th. So happy birthday yesterday, Mary, and I'm glad both of you like my stuff. GameIdiots would like you to check out their stop motions. I watched the one with Shockwave, and he does a mean Shockwave. Pixelcraft is also making stop motions. He doesn't voice them himself, but he does use effects, and a happy late birthday to you as well. TheGreatMaskedGamer wants you to check out their shorts. They don't seem to be about games, so I don't know what's up with that. DK Guillotine has been with me since my earliest videos. He's a Transformer reviewer too, and his videos have a good energy to them. Erectus Defectus has an Instagram called Erectus Collectus. Need I say more? You know what, that might sound sexual. He makes Transformers customs. Joao has been with me for a good while. I never knew how to read this till I looked it up just now. I just used to think of him as J Squiggly. Spiderzilla makes stop motions about more than just the Transformers. Shawnpai maketh the dank May. Also, happy birthday. You did not tell me what day it was on, merely that it was happening, so whenever that was, wish you well. Monstructor makes mostly Transformers reviews, but they do other stuff too. King Kyle 5 wants me to shout out an artist they like. And that's a bit different, huh? But happy to oblige. The PixelMoon is doing Transformers drawings and animations, and even their own show. Whydopeoplelovefoxy is making non-stop motion joke videos with action figures. Deadlionarts, an artist and the As for the Question of the Video guy. He's done a fan art for me before, and it was fantastic. But he didn't give me a link to direct you guys to him, so I will edit his email into the video description if he responds that that's what he wants, or whatever social media he wants me to direct you to. Lastly, SharkZ wants you to check out their Instagram. It's full of high-quality pictures, most of which are Transformers related. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.